Intro video there. I gotta figure out how all that's gonna happen. We are live. Just talking to myself about. They're asking me to do a little intro video, so I'm gonna have to do that and figure that out and kind of see what appears on that, and so you guys can let me know what happens on your end of that and see what's happening with the intro video. But I will have a thumbnail photo up, which I put up after we end up doing this. For some reason, the way we're streaming it, it does not allow me to do that. But today we are here to talk about blown big blocks, and as we've said many times, about lots and lots of different kinds of motors. The only thing better than a big block is a bigger big block. So we go from a 454, in this case, up to a 540-inch motor, because this was a blueprint crate engine, which makes it really easy, super easy, power button there. You just order up a crate motor and it comes the way that it came to us. Is their 540 was a low compression deal. It had a pretty healthy camshaft in it. In fact, they ended up, at my recommendation, using the camshaft that I have used on lots of blower things. It was that Comp BR300 cam. That was 650 lift, 652, a 255, 262 degree duration, and 114 degree lobe separation angle. They had their own aluminum head castings. We installed a 454R, like rec port single plane intake manifold on it. And then we ran it naturally aspirated. It had roller rockers. In fact, the way that it came from them, you could see in this photo, this first one, it has extensions for the valve covers, because they had a stud girdle on this thing, which I don't know is really necessary with the kind of spring rates that they had on those heads. Given, this was it's a decent size solid roller cam for a big block Chevy, but it's not like an 800 lift kind of thing. But they had stud girdles on it, which we ended up actually taking off. But especially to fit the blower, it worked out a lot better. And like I said, we didn't really need them for that size solid roller camshaft. It's only 650 lift, and not a ton of spring rate. But we ended up running this combination naturally aspirated. And then what we did was added a Vortech supercharger, in this case a YSI. So we want to talk a little bit about what's going on and what all happened when we added the blower to it. So we can I'll go ahead and let this kind of scroll through. You guys can take a look at some of the photos of the blueprint power adder. It comes as a long block and not a complete motor. So we had to put a distributor and a carburetor and intake. And when we ran it naturally aspirated, like I said, we put the single plane intake manifold on there. We put a 950 XP carburetor on there, then the MSD. And then after we added the blower, after we added a Vortech YSI, and you can see that, we'll play this a couple of times. You can see that we had the YSI was equipped. And this is really the easiest way to do it and not have to worry about belt slippages. We had a cog drive on it. So we had an 80-tooth crank pulley. And then we had a couple of different blower pulleys that we sized. We had a 34-tooth and then a 32-tooth. And we'll go ahead and go over when we take a look at the power curves, we'll go ahead and go over the boost. But we ran as much as 13.5 pounds, I think, on this thing with the YSI. You could obviously put a bigger blower on this. The YSI is pretty good for 4-digit power levels. It's nowhere near, anywhere near their biggest blower. And this 540 could take a lot more supercharger if you wanted to do that. But this thing, we were kind of looking for 1,000 horsepower. We pretty easily exceeded that. That wasn't too big of a deal. So the YSI did very well. And when we switched over to the blower, as you can see here, we'll scroll through this. We replaced the normal Holley 950 XP with the CSU 850 blow-through dedicated carburetor that we did. We also ran race gas in this. The blow-through carburetor that we had from CSU wasn't designed to work as a E85 carburetor, which would have been nice. We could have just run E85 on this whole thing, and that kind of would have been good. But we ran a mixture of race gas and pump gas on this thing. Like I said, we ended up running like 13 pounds or something with the cog pulley. But the nice thing is that we had a dead consistent, boost curve supplied by the blower every run. We didn't have to worry about belt slippage at all. You can kind of see here that the cog pulley set up with the big tensioner on it, there's no slippage at all. And that's kind of nice. It's one of the things you have to be concerned with when you're running blowers on stuff. If you're running a serpentine setup or whatever, and you're really trying to spin them up, which we spun this thing up, like I said, up into the 4-digit power levels. So you just don't have to worry about belt slippage on a cog. It's really, really kind of nice. But also make sure that you're running a blow-off valve on this thing for decel, because you're you're moving a lot of air. When you close the throttle blade on it, you'll get a lot of pressure buildup. So you want to have a good blow off valve on there. That helps a lot. And so we can take a look at now we kind of have a pretty good idea what's going on with the motor combination. And then the blower, take a look at the power curves here. So our combination with the NA motor, the 540 low compression, will produce 649 horsepower and 629 foot-pounds of torque. And then once we added the Vortech supercharger with the 34-tooth blower pulley and the 80-tooth crank pulley, boost started out at 4.4 pounds and rose to a peak of 12 pounds. And so we had 12 pounds at the horsepower peak. You guys can kind of take a look and see what the power gain is. It's a lot. We're already making more than 1,000 horsepower. We were at 1,022 horsepower. And like I said, boost rose from 4.4 to 12 pounds. And then we tried another different blower pulley because I think we had a pair of cog pulleys for the blower. We had a 34-tooth and a 32-tooth. So we took the 34-tooth pulley off, installed the 34-tooth. You probably hear the breathing when I was doing the screenshot here. And then the boost went up from 12.1 to a peak of 13.5 pounds, and more boost, obviously, as you would expect, more power, 13.5 pounds, and peak power was up to 1060. It seemed to fall off a little bit at the top there, and I don't know if we were getting to the flow limit of the blower. I don't think that was the case. We know that it's not belt slippage. So at any rate, again, we were trying to get to 1,000 horsepower, and it fairly easily did that. We can kind of get rid of that part of it. We can go over this again. You guys can still hear the audio on this, right? Let me know, because I did a mute on the graph. Yeah, that's my mic in the background. Neil, let me know if you can still hear the audio with me speaking. I think you probably can, but I just want to make sure I've turned the audio off on the other one so that you can't hear the mouth breathing on the mic. Again, so like I said, we were trying to look for the number that we wanted. Like our target was 1,000 horsepower, which again, good blower. We added more than 400 horsepower using the blower, which is good. And then we've run bigger blowers than this on this particular motor on this 540. We ran nitrous on it. We ran 671 on it. We ran this Vortech. We ran a couple of different Pro Chargers on it. We ran a pair of turbos on it, and it always did fairly well. It seemed to want to be in the 4-digit power level. But one of the things I wanted you to notice here is, and you can kind of see this with the power curves, we'll leave the power curves up there. But when we made peak torque with the naturally aspirated motor, it made peak torque way down here at like 40, I want to say it was like 46 or 4,700 RPM. But when we ran the blower, peak torque occurred all the way out here at 54 or 5,500 RPM. So we shifted peak torque production with the centrifugal blower by quite a bit, by like 1,000 RPM. So it was quite a bit. And had we continued to have enough blower to support our power level, or if we would have run this at a lower boost level and continued to run it out with more RPM, we would have seen that also. We would have seen the thing make peak power at a higher engine speed, because like I said, when we have a rising boost curve, which in this case with the 34-tooth pulley, power or boost started out at 4.4 pounds down here at like 35 or 600 RPM, started at 4.4 and rose to 12.1 out here at 6,100 RPM. So we didn't run this thing at a very high engine speed. And the same thing with the 32-tooth pulley. It started out at 5.7 and rose to 13.5 PSI. So we had this rising boost curve, which tends to artificially enhance, kind of shift the power curve higher and higher, because as RPM goes up, we're making more boost and more power. And so we increase the engine speed where the thing makes peak power. Like I said, we shifted where it made peak torque by almost 1,000 RPM. And that's something that's very important and something that's inherent kind of with a centrifugal supercharger. Now, a lot of guys ask, well, why do you want the turbo then? If you have a turbo on it, why do you want the boost to be flat on the turbo? Well, you can. That's one of the options. You can also have a falling boost curve if you don't have a big enough turbo to support where you're trying to go. But you could also, just like this, have a rising boost curve if you were able to control your wastegate electronically and make it do that versus RPM. You could go like, hey, look, I want it to have 10 pounds at the beginning, and then 12, and then 15, and then 20, or however you want it to rise. If you have enough control over your wastegate, you can actually make it do that. So you can make the turbo kind of do what that is doing. And on some of the blower applications, even the positive displacement stuff, like a twin screw, a Kenny Bell or Whipple or a TVS, sometimes with the short runner manifolds that they use, and depending on what the efficiency is with the camshaft and stuff, you can have a slightly rising boost curve also with those combinations. But you definitely do with a centrifugal supercharger, and that's exactly what happened here. And as we can see, crate motor plus boost, lots of power. Let's see what you guys got going on here. See how you like this. We'll go ahead and run the photos of this one more time, and then I can switch over to the power curves and stuff and see how you guys are doing this afternoon. My day just got better. I like hearing that. That's good. That's a good way to step into the stream. David, Getaway, Tim, what's going on? Now we're talking, finally getting in tune to be working a lot. I need one of these for my 86 GMC short box. Yeah, this is a good truck motor, or a Camaro motor, or a Chevelle, or an S10, or anything. Neil, what's going on? I wonder if the newer generation 496 crank is similar to the older big blocks. Do you mean you're wondering if it is as strong? I haven't done this power level. We've done this torque level, but not this power level with the 8.1. So we know with a turbo deal that 850 or 900 foot-pounds is doable. Yeah, Richard's very excited in that photo, Neil. Ta-da! On an engine of 480 cubic inches, purpose-built for nitrous, how long can I spray at Bonneville for 20 seconds? Yes, guys do spray for that long. Could you do a max NA build on this, 12-to-1 compression and ITBs? I couldn't do that, but Blueprint does sell a higher compression version of this motor. One of the things that we did with this is we did upgrade the camshaft. We put a bigger camshaft in it, and then also put airflow research heads on it, which are also better than those that are there. And I think that we picked up quite a bit of power, 650. I think we picked up like 100 horsepower or something, somewhere near that. And 12-to-1 wouldn't be the max NA thing. We would go much higher in compression on a big block than that if we were trying to do a dedicated NA deal and make more power. But yeah, with a tunnel ram and all that, I have some 555 and 565 stuff that's getting up closer to 1,000 horsepower on the NA builds on those. No need to zoom in on the pictures, but it gets action, and people like that. Scottish, what's going on? But it looks cool, Jet, and you found the feature in the app. that actually is part of the video shop that I use for editing, that I have used for the editing on all of the videos that I've put up on YouTube. Only 11 likes. Yeah, there's more now though, I think. Although I don't see the likes here. Now I want an NA engine. ITBs would be cool. I don't ever remember running ITBs on a big block. Maybe way back we did that with those throttle body deals that had the injectors inside them that looked like Webers. We might have tried that on a big block. Although those are only 48 millimeters, I think. I don't know that they were as big as what I would have wanted for something like this. I have a 350 with flat tops, 441 heads, 602, so 243 cam. That's pretty big. Currently having to run 88 primary jet and 96 secondary in a 4150 double pumper. Okay. Does it have a I'm assuming if you have that kind of a split, do you have a power valve in the primary circuit? Proform center section with adjustable Venturi jet, 75 and 36 in primary and secondary. What do you recommend? I don't have any idea what to recommend on there, because that description for the motor doesn't tell me anything about what the air fuel is. We can hear, I have a technical question. I've typed it out above. I really appreciate your knowledge and information. Yeah, I would need to know what the air fuel is. You need to put an air fuel meter on it to see what it needs. On that 480, as long as bottle pressure is steady and AFR stays locked in, I'd say just do a half hit and check plugs for heat. It's built for spray. It's probably fine, but most likely likes more ring gap. You would definitely want to have ring gap if you're running nitrous on anything, and particularly if you're doing it at Bonneville for any length of time, because normally you're not in nitrous for that long. If it doesn't rev to 9, it's not VTEC. You see the new episode where video made 1,000 horsepower on stock rods, block, and crankshaft small block Chevy? I haven't seen that yet. What is the idea behind the rocket, anti-lag, and Group B? To make sure that the turbo is always spooled up so that they have power exiting the turn. Yeah, Neil already said that. Oklahoma's in the house. Big power, big power. I'm new to tuning with Venturi jets. Can you check out my question up further? I did check it out already. 540 looks better than 8.85 liters. Yeah, I wouldn't even know. I've never even designated a 540 at liters that I can remember. Can you put a late model 2010 8.1 big block crank on a Gen 4 block, one piece rear main seal? Won't let it happen. Not in a Mark IV block, you can't, unless you do an adapter. But I've never tried that crankshaft. You need to hear it doing a pull. It has a power valve. You need to see what the air fuel meter is telling you, Leighton. You have to have an air fuel meter in there to know whether or not it's too rich or too lean. I have a 350. Should I change it to a 383 stroker? Yeah, 383 is always better, but there's obviously costs and stuff involved with that. Working on getting a dart block. Curious if you have any knowledge on types of dart blocks or LS blocks for insane power, 2,500 horsepower and up. I've never done 2,500 horsepower in anything, but I can ask around about guys that have done that stuff. Definitely going to be an air fuel ratio gauge. Should I run the power valve or plug off the power valve and jet up accordingly? You could do it either way. The power valve, though, is some guys like the drivability more of the power valve. 1997 first year of multi-port fuel injection. Are you asking me, is that the first year of multi-port fuel injection? On what? On what engine family or whatever? For Chevrolet, it's not. They had multi-port fuel injection long before that. They had it back in '85 on the tune port stuff. Do you have a preference for air fuel gauges? No, I don't. As long as it's accurate and consistent, and really consistent would be more than the other thing. And so some gauges will read differently than others. Some sensors will read differently than others. But what I want it to see is, like on your application, I want to know, is it 9-to-1 or is it 12-to-1? and we need to know where it's at. Also, the base timing is set at 20 degrees. Is that where it should be? No, it's going to want more timing. I don't know about the base timing. I'm more interested in what the total timing is. The base timing is just going to be more a function of how it takes throttle and whether it starts or not. But the total timing is the important thing. That would be awesome. I'm still doing a junkyard build, perhaps with different purpose, but a dart block might be necessary for what I'm shooting for. Well, what are you trying to make 2,500 horsepower for? Are you going to do a standalone for your Metro project? Is it going to force induction? Where are you starting? Yes, the Metro, the next test on the Metro will be turbo versus the AMR blower. And for that, we'll still use the factory stuff. I have a Holley single throttle body thing that we can run on there, I think. Otherwise, it's going to get a Haltech on it. Todd, what's going on, man? Yeah, it's going to take a standalone to do, because I have the turbo sprint motor, which I think we can fit all of that stuff onto the Metro one, because I'm learning about adaptability between or interchangeability between the Metro deal and the earlier Sprint, and apparently they don't intermingle the transmission stuff. Yeah, Neil, I'm excited about trying the Haltech stuff. They gave me a Rebel, and so I need to put that. I'll put that on an LS the next time I go down. We have some turbos to test, which is going to be cool. And I want to try the Haltech stuff on the LS, and then we want to put it on the Metro either. What Pro Charger would you say the YSI is equivalent to? I don't. Maybe an F1A 94, maybe something close to that. For full quarter-mile drag truck, will somehow maintain 4-wheel drive, so I'll need any available information on that stuff. Go look up a truck called Crawfish. It's something else. Okay, but you're thinking you need 2,500 horsepower? It seems like a lot to start out with. Definitely a shoot for 35 degrees total timing based on what I've seen on the channel. Ideally, I would like to dial in the total timing on an engine dyno. Yeah, your combination with, if you have iron heads on it, the iron 441 heads on it, it's going to want that much timing if it's a flat top and an iron head. And depending on your octane, I'm enjoying the weather on the southern hemisphere. Upside down, that's good. That's all good. Is this, Jet, where are you at? Are you in Australia? And what season is it there right now? Hello, all the tuner guys you can actually talk to and not just get a call center. Yeah, that's one of the big problems, not problems, but expenses for guys that have standalone stuff like Haltech, Holly, or whoever fast, is that obviously when you have products out like that, having to, a lot of people need like technical information on getting those things right. I can't put down 500 on the street. Would 2,000 horsepower be any more of a help? Yeah, that sort of power level is a lot. Any suggestions on timing and air fuel? 9.5 to 1 compression, 525 big block, 88s, 85 non-air-cooled, XFI, 320 profilers. Yeah, I have air fuel should be in the mid 11s. Timing, I don't know about the big block Ford. I don't remember what the timing was on I don't know how much total timing it needed on the big block Ford. I'm going to say in the low 20s probably. And I don't know how much boost you're running. Heads are definitely small for the camshaft. Definitely sounds like a 500 to 600 horsepower small block Chevy, but yeah, it's not going to be anywhere near that. Gen 2 Coyote, 100% stock, single GT76. Apparently it's a 1,000 horsepower turbo. Okay, I don't know whose 76 that is, but only 64 millimeter turbine exducer. That seems small. Yeah, the turbine side seems really small to me. And I don't know whose 76 that is. Like if it's a 76 millimeter, like that CX Racing calls a 76 millimeter, that's never going to get to 1,000 horsepower. Would 75 millimeter turbine exducer be enough for that Coyote, or should we go to 80? 650 crank horsepower. So I want to stay around that level. Stick drift car needs a spool, but of course... Yeah, we've done easily that power level with the 75 millimeter turbine. Richard, I built a 540 big block. Use the same information that Steve Brulé for the 750 horsepower out of a 540. Then he did another one that had over 900. A lot of the combination. Good. And a 70 C10. That's I hope you have lots of other transmission and suspension and brake and all of that stuff with that 70C10 and with a motor like that. Do you know of a big block Chevy intake manifold that accepts a manifold mounted air to water intercooler besides the shear fabrication adapter for the Edelbrock lower? Well, since Chevrolet or since Holley now has a big block high ram for the big block, the Tick and all of those guys that make intercoolers for high rams, I think that that's going to be the same top as the LS stuff. So all that stuff should fit. I've seen you on a few Engine Masters episodes. Yeah, I have been on. I've stood in for Brule a couple of times when he was doing stuff. Twin 88s should get 2,500. Yeah, I don't see any reason why that should probably could be more than that, depending on what the 88s are. What do you think about boost in aluminum blocks? How much boost can they handle on a street car? On the 5.3 aluminum block, you can run as much boost as you want on those. But on the LS1, LS2, and LS3 aluminum blocks, 1,000 horsepower is about where we go with those. We just scored a running Gen 4 peanut port 454 for $200. Nice. For a Gen 5 454, what heads should I look for in a junkyard to upgrade for peanut ports that would bolt on without modifications? You could put a set of Gen 6 big block Chevy heads on there, which are going to be 102 cc chambers, and they're going to be standard size oval ports and not peanut ports. So that would be a good upgrade for that. Is the Engine Masters available on Discovery? I don't know if it is or not, but there are no more new episodes though. Yeah, Southland, happy to help, man. Richard, I do 4-wheel disc brakes, custom built turbo 400s to handle 1,200 horsepower. Believe me, it's a handful to drive on the street. I bet it would. But that's good that you have all that other stuff, because it's a lot of times easy to make the power. And then we go, well, drum brakes will be fine with that. Yeah, not really so much. Okay, I'm going to make a post here. Make sure to check out richardoldperformance.com for deals on LS performance. We have the store doing well. The store is doing well. Jimmy's helping take care of all that stuff, and so make sure to go check it out. And we've got more and more things going up. Our test turbos should be here very quickly. We have some tools that are going to be here, and I got to make sure that all of that stuff that we're going to test about, like I said, 6 or 7 different turbos, and try them on different things. And we're even talking about putting together a low buck turbo setup for vehicles. So it should be fun. richardoldperformance.com. Did I spell that right? Richard, would you recommend Vortech Gen 6 heads over Edelbrock heads? No, I would not. I would recommend an aftermarket set of aluminum heads over a factory set of iron heads every day of the week. And so if you're looking for that, you could look at those Edelbrock heads, or the Airflow Research Enforcer heads are also good. David, happy to help, man. I've watched videos of you and Steve Brule, and I've learned a lot. I even made a custom water bottle fuel bowl drain by seeing the aluminum cup tool that you guys at VORTEDH. Yeah, I can't believe how often we've used that. And I think that somebody gave that to Steve. And now we have there are a couple of those, because when there's only one and there were a couple of dynos going and then the chassis dyno going, everybody always needed one of those. But it's a lot easier to have those little drain bottles when you're doing, jet changes. Did you experience problems with revving this Coyote past 7,000 RPM with a 75 millimeter hot side outlets? Would you suggest? Yeah, Mad Mods, you need to check back pressure. It's pretty easy to monitor and see. I wouldn't ever say that, yeah, you're having a back pressure problem until I monitored the back pressure, because I would like to know for sure what the numbers are. I had drum brakes when they first built it. It would not stop. Yeah, 2 feet on the pedal. Yeah, it just, you gotta, I would rather have less power and more brakes than the opposite of that. Richard, did you ever make a video about how you started your current job and your relationship with Steve? I probably have talked about that a lot. If you go back and watch some of the very beginning videos, I talked about how I got into this industry. And I'm going to be doing more interviews with people coming up this year that people have asked me to be on their live feeds or whatever, their interviews. And so we'll be talking about that. But yeah, Steve, I actually started doing stuff at VORTEDH before Steve was there. Whatever happened to the Dodge 600 engine you bought from the yard? I still have it. It's all rebuilt and put back together, and it's the one that I put on the engine dyno that we had tuning issues with, but the motor's ready to go. Glad to hear the store is doing well. If all goes to plan, I should be making some purchases around the last quarter of the year. There you go. Got some goals to take care of. Would you ever consider sponsoring or taking part in a quarter-mile drag team? I don't think that the store is not in a position to do that. We're not nearly big enough. Are the big block Chevy Holly high rams available now? I thought that they were. I have a Dart 540, Pro Max, Shocker 370 heads, F1X, Turbo 400, Gear Vendors Overdrive, 67 drag and drive setup. Okay. I think that that's going to be a really popular intake manifold for big blocks based on what tunnel rams do on big blocks anyway. Yeah, Leighton, you need to monitor on a turbo setup. You need to monitor back pressure. And the way that we do it is we drill and tap the exhaust before the turbo, and then we put a steel fitting in there. We thread a steel fitting in there. Then we run a line off of that that's either copper or aluminum. And then we run that up to just a pressure gauge. For us, it's a pressure transducer that gets data logged. But then while you're making a run, you're monitoring the boost pressure from your turbo or blower. And then also, in the case of a turbo, back pressure that's in the system between basically the exhaust valve and the turbo. If the back pressure gets really high relative to the boost pressure, then you have a problem with the hot side sizing of your turbo. Brakes are good. Feel like Vizark porting some GT40P heads looking like AFRs and watching Richard Holder. That's what you feel like doing? You want to port some GT40s? Dyno, she should be able to see it fall off if that 75 millimeter housing on the Coyote is too restrictive at 7,000 RPM. No, you can't do that because you could have another problem that's causing that. And you also don't know if the power falls off or if the boost falls off. You don't know what's causing that. You don't know if the compressor side is too small, if you have a broken valve spring. It could be lots of things. You need to monitor the back pressure and the boost pressure to find out what those are doing. Can you interview some Australias? They're mostly mental. When are you really going to push an LV3 to the max with boost? I have one of my Datsun 1200 going 520s at 135. Have you not? What have you done to that? How much boost are you running in that? I'm wondering about the crankshaft on those. Any modern day big blocks floating around? Do they even make big blocks anymore? Well, they did back in 2000 anyway. And then after that in the 8.1s. Ocean Raceworks has a really nice back pressure sensor setup. Mad Mods 2-to-1 is not bad on boost pressure to back pressure. That's not terrible. We can't have a poll, Eric, on pressure transducers, etc. Look at industrial stuff. The puppies are awesome. In fact, that's them barking in the background. Probably a squirrel related incident. That's always a thing. Squirrel or possum or bird or something. The cat, somebody walking by, all of that. Let's switch this over here. Wow. That was a good motor. It's even better after you put the airflow research heads on there. I think I ran that same pulley setup on the junkyard big block on the 454. It made a lot of boost. And then we ran an intercooler on there, really helped. But we're blowing through the carburetor. But still, at 13 pounds, I would still be thinking intercooler. Oh, look at that. That's a nice little power curve there. Huh? Peak power at 6,100. Yeah, Mike, the cog drive is definitely the way to go. It's that way we don't ever have to worry about the thing. There was no slippage ever. It's nice. Poland's in the house. In your opinion, for a budget build, are 706 heads or 243 heads better to use? Does the compression difference make up for the flow difference on a turbo setup shooting for 1,000 horsepower? There's no choice between those two. They're both 1,000 horsepower is easy to do with either one of those. That's just going to be a function of your turbo and your camshaft. And 1,000 horsepower would be a lot easier with any kind of camshaft. But all the stock heads will do that. LB3, 23 PSI had oiling issues at first, but had that sorted out. Brian said that they had oiling issues also. What was your oiling issue that you guys had? And are you running that with a stock piston and rod and just ring gap, or does it have rings and pistons in it, or pistons and rods in it? I'm sure it has rings in it because you would have to, otherwise it doesn't seal very well. And is it still a direct injected motor, or do you have port injection on also? There. 1,000 horsepower is easy. Just add nitrous. Take back sawdust. I'm starting the junkyard build very soon. Getting a motor, transmission, transfer case, and turbo. 7875. Then get the rings. Low buck truck. Let the fun begin. There you go. That'll be fun. I think you'll find, for if you're talking about 2,500 horsepower stuff, that the 2,500 horsepower transmission and drivetrain and all that stuff is going to be real money. Should you run a high volume oil pump on a small buck Chevy with a stock capacity oil pan, or do you need an extra capacity oil pan? It depends on how your drain back is. And it depends on what your stock oil pan is, because all the small bucks are not the same. But even with a high volume pump, we've never run an oil pan dry, at least not on the dyno, but we're not sloshing it around because it stays pretty steady. How many cc's are the Gen 5 heads? They're around 120. And it's going to be one full point. And it might even be more than that. If you go to Wallace Racing, you can figure that out. Wallace Racing compression calculator. Tim, motivate me to get on the bike today. You better get on that bike. I know I've got to go run. I've got to go after this. I'm going to take the dogs out because it's sunny out. It's probably, I don't know, 55 or 60 or something. But the sun, as long as the sun's out, that's all I care about. I like getting out in the sun, and the sun is good for you. that sort of light and vitamin D and all that stuff, that's all good for you. So go get your stuff done. Everything is a system, so you need balance, just like in our life. Just in a 71 El Camino, making 350 horsepower or less at the crank. Step 1, junkyard build. There you go. Step 2 is a dart block and a full drag chassis. All right, Tim, go get it, man. One step at a time. The first step is always the hardest. Yeah, 2,500 horsepower drivetrain's not cheap. Yeah, that's going to be a lot. A 2,500 horsepower drivetrain is as much or more as the motor is going to be. That's right, a Vortech supercharger. I beg to differ when it's 10 outside. Yeah, no. Well, yeah, no. When it's 10 degrees outside, that's a different thing. You got to be really dedicated to go run when it's 10 degrees outside. I don't think I've ever done that. Or negative 10. Yeah, that's even worse. I don't think I would go run in full like down jackets and stuff. But if it's that cold outside, you can work out inside. You know, just do lunges, do squats. I set up stuff so I can, you know, I got some weights inside and I got a little bench and you could just get stuff done, man. What would be your cam and turbo choice if you're building 1,000 horsepower LC9 truck? I have a rod and piston motor with studs. Going to try a Heltech. There's like about a bajillion of them that you could do. If I was going to do it for the street, I would pick our low buck truck camshaft because I think that that's the best cam going for the price and for what it does for a street strip kind of thing. Because you can easily make 1,000 horsepower with it. We did 925 at like 17 pounds. So that's, and so at 20 pounds or so, you're going to be there. That's not going to be hard. Just pick the right size turbo. And the turbo would be, we're going to have some turbos that are going to be really good. I think if they do what the specs tell me that they should. But right now I would pick a 78, 75 Gen 2 or 3 or something like that, or an S475, that kind of deal. First cut is the deepest. There you go. It's Rod Stewart. Nothing good ever comes easy. That's right. I heard that if you're procrastinating something, to set a 5-minute timer and start it for 5 minutes until the timer goes off, then see how you feel about continuing. There you go. Rod and piston deal. Stock rods gave up. Port injection, Holly Terminator. I was sucking the pan dry with the oil pan I had modified. So cut down a V8 Holly pan for more capacity. Okay. You're a procrastinating loser. What is vacuum in an engine? I've been around this stuff my whole life and just realized I don't know what vacuum really is inside an engine and how it's measured. Well, vacuum indicates a restriction. And in the case of an engine, you have the engine, you know, spinning around and the piston going up and down and wanting to draw air in. But when you have a throttle valve in front of all that, which is your carburetor or your throttle body, and that's closed, then the engine is wanting to draw stuff in, but there's nothing there. So what it does is creates a vacuum. What is Richard's favorite band? I don't really have that. I'm not a one-trick pony kind of thing. I have been, we were just talking about this the other day, though. I have been lots of concerts. I went to see Springsteen in the Meadowlands, second row center with 2 twins, and it was it's kind of fun. I've seen the Ramones. I was talking about, I won a thing to see Elton John. I went to see the Bus Boys. Who else? I saw Springsteen here in LA too. Who else did we go see? I've seen Oingo Boingo. I don't think I went to see AC/DC. I think I missed that one. Prefer measuring in bar, measuring in bars. Wish I could short my activities for profit. Never settle. That's right. I go off absolute vacuum, so 1 bar for me is atmosphere and 2 bar is 1 bar of boost. Okay. However your thing works. Oingo Boingo was cool. It was and it was around Halloween, so they did the whole Dead Men's party and stuff. It was fun. Have you ever messed with diesels? I did own a diesel, a Duramax. I think it was an 08. Cummins in a Dodge, big Dodge dually, and we did a few things on the chassis dyno, but not on the engine dyno. Should I change out my dish pistons on my 5.3 before I add turbos? No, there's no need to do that. Your turbos will do just fine, even with dish pistons. One bar is rarely atmospheric, though. Yeah, it would depend on a lot where you are, what your elevation is and stuff. Junkyard Duramax build would be legit. Yeah, that's not going to happen on the engine dyno. The piston question, you don't need more compression. You're fine, because ultimately the turbos are going to dictate how much power you make. And so if you want to make 1,000 horsepower, you can easily do that with the lower compression, and you add some, safety window there for the tune. So I like that better. I like doing what's necessary. It's like, oh, should I put ported heads on it? Yeah, ported heads help. They make more power, definitely. And I would put ported heads on a combination like an NA combination where I was trying to make more power, but it's not necessary to get to where you want to get to, as long as you're where you need to get to is a reasonable amount. And then the other consideration for heads with the LS stuff, and maybe others too, is that the deck thickness becomes an issue. And so if you want to have thicker decks, then an aftermarket head's a good idea. How does the E85 compare to straight methanol for detonation control? I think that detonation would be less prevalent in methanol, but I haven't run methanol in anything yet. It's a good day to try to do something positive. There you go, Tim. Let's be positive. So on the junkyard build, I plan on doing the ring gap, polishing the crankshaft, maybe tossing Gen 4 rods, forged pistons, get it balanced. What stock heads for boosted applications? Any of the stock heads will work. It doesn't matter which one you pick. And none of that is going to determine really anything. The 317 heads are going to lower the compression a pretty good bit and make it more sluggish. But a 706 or 862, I think I'd pick an 862 just because of the casting concerns with the 706 stuff. A 243, a 799, a 241, like an LS1 head. All of those will work just fine. Run an M90 on what 600 motor? Low compression, high boost, in the words of Jeremy Clarkson. Hits hard. How much compression can you run methanol on? You can run all of the NA compression. Have you run stock casting cathedral port heads that were hand ported and the runners break into the head bolts? Does the void break out and the port affect the flow of the head? I've never had heads ported that went into the head bolt holes. You can run any level of static compression for naturally aspirated methanol deal. Any level that you could come to would be fine. You just run into a problem of being able to do that with the volumes that you're talking about. And then also you run into problems where the piston design that you have to use and stuff, it just becomes not really an issue anymore. You just can't get there. Like you can't run 25-1 or whatever. It just doesn't work. And you get to a point of way diminishing returns when you start talking about really, really high static compressions. Oh, the 2.2 out of the 600. Oh, you want me to run a blower on the two? Okay, so Okay, I thought you were talking about a 600 horsepower motor. So you want me to run an M90 on the 2.2? That would take a custom manifold and stuff. But I don't. That's not on the list. But I guess it could be. We'll never see production cars like them again. Like which ones, Neil? What about mixing fuel, like 70% 93 and 30% 85? Yeah, you can do any sort of mixture that you want. We've done that. I've poured E85 into my truck. Just driven around like that. Works fine. Then it becomes not E85. It becomes less than E85. Flex fuel sensors. Yep, that helps. Low compression, high boost stuff. Yeah, if you look at OEM stuff, it's typically lower compression stuff with the boost. I mean, if you look at the L67s or the L32s, all the blower versions of those, which both of those are, versus the L36 stuff, the NA stuff has higher compression. It gets better fuel mileage and helps make the NA motor make more power. E50 or so, if a 50-50 mix. Yeah. And then what you mix it with, like if you mix the E85 with 87, you get something different than if you mix it with 91 or 100 or 112 or 118 or whatever you want to mix it with. That would obviously vary the outcome. It seems like the guy that was asking about the M90 on the 2.2, people seem, and maybe because that they have a factory turbo, that's not a big deal to people, but people seem to be more excited about that, which is just a terrible way to go compared to a turbo. But it does have the cool factor because they used to offer the blower kit. Mopar Performance, I think, I had the blower kit for those, and I think people would like to see that. Adding ethanol or similar will oxygenate your fuel. I keep swapping these around just because I can. Whoa. Have you done any testing on the 6.6 liter L8T? If so, in your opinion, is there any power difference big enough to justify buying one instead of a 6.2 if they had the equivalent cam kit? Well, it is going to make more power because it's bigger. Just like any bigger motor, just like a 6.2 makes more power than a 6.0 or a 5.3 or a 4.8 certainly, and so it is bigger. But I'm told that the rods on the factory ones are not very good, that they're not very strong. So if you did a piston and rod deal, and Brian Tooley just did a big thing with the guys from Power Auto Media on the 6.6 on the L8T, where they ran it NA and blowers and stuff. In fact, we're supposed to be talking about that with the in-cylinder pressure transducer data when I interview Brian. And as soon as we can get that information from them, that we're supposed to talk about that. Will AFR heads interchange from a factory block to a Dart block, as we know? If so, may get those for the junkyard build until the Dart is about after 7 years of saving. Yeah, the airflow research heads will go on to either one of those blocks. How can you lift the top end torque on a baseline 540 cube? I probably don't really understand what you're asking. How can you make more peak power? Is that what you're asking? Scott, what's going on? Work, work, work. Just work all the time. All work all the time. Nothing but work. Work, work, work. Been lazy. Haven't finished the E85 conversion. Still need to do the fuel system. I've got injectors and a pump. Had a bunch of nitrous jet. That will help. That always helps. You cut up another hood. Where are you getting all the hoods from, Scott? Are they wrecking yard hoods? I need to go to a wrecking yard and I need to get a complete Gen 6 big block Chevy with the accessories and the factory EFI setup. I'd be happy with the lowest torque curve you have up now on the street. Oh, the NA one is still, yeah, that's still over 600 foot-pounds at 3,500. So that's doing pretty good. And that's a low compression one. The high compression motor made a good bit more power. It used to be that when I went to the LKQ that we get that whole motor. We get the fuel, and they let me take the air intake and had the mass air meter and all that stuff in there. I'm like, well, I don't really want that, but it's already attached. So they're like, well, just take it all. Now it's like, oh no, you have that kind of bolt on there? Yeah, we're charging you for that bolt. But I do want to have the accessory drive, which is something I've thrown away. I'm sure I've thrown away 10 of those. Thrown away all of the accessories. It's just part of the procedure of unbolting everything, and then all of the EFI setup. Got rid of all that stuff. Got to get rid of all that because I got to put a carburetor on it. Yeah, 600 foot-pounds is good. I mean, it's not 800 foot-pounds, but it's still good. And 900 foot-pounds too. 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, when they go up in 100 foot-pound increments, that's pretty good. Aftermarket accessories are expensive. Yep. Yeah, they charge for everything, man. Every accessory, any kind of mount, any bracket, anything that's on there is just terrible. Yeah, 900 is not 1,000. That's right. And we're close enough on the last pull with a 32 tooth cog pulley where it was making 13 pounds. We're getting up close to 1,000 foot-pounds. I have a Gen 6 454, but it has a fuel pump flange casting on it. Were they only done that way as crate motors? Is that the only difference? I've never seen a Gen 6 that has a fuel pump flange on it. I've seen Gen 5 stuff that does. But it might have been when they were switching, we don't know, because it might have been when they were switching over producing the blocks and stuff. Because some of the Gen 5 stuff had provisions for cam retaining plates. Hi, Bruno, what are you doing? Huh? What are you doing? For the hydraulic roller stuff, huh? What are you doing? What are you doing? Hello. Oh, you're turning into a big doggy, huh? You are, huh? Hello, what are you doing? Okay. Just fudge the figures, yeah. And I don't care. I just want the numbers to be what the numbers are. But if we get to, if we were to got to like 995, I'm like, oh, we're definitely getting to 1,000 somehow. We're gonna make that happen. But we would have done like real stuff. Can't find much information on it, but it uses the Gen 6 timing cover, and it somewhat confuses me. How does a Gen 5 block? The block that you have uses the Gen 6 timing cover. Okay. And it's a factory hydraulic roller, and it has the Gen 6 heads and stuff on it. Yeah, I've never seen that. Maybe they did do some of those. A T56 in a factory 9-inch will cover 600 foot-pounds with no major problems. Okay. I've seen some complete LS motor trans stuff on Marketplace out here for $1,200 to $1,500. Are those 4L60s, Scott? I don't want a transmission. I just need the motor and the accessories and the fuel injection, not the harness or anything, just the EFI manifold. I just want a stock one. Just want a bone stocker. Think you'll move to a Holley Sniper-like solution for dyno testing? It's like your 80-pound injectors. You can run a 400 horsepower engine all the way up to 1,200. No, I won't ever do that. Not the 4-hole throttle body thing. It's way easier just to put a carburetor on there. If we have a big block that's a carbureted big block, we can have a carbureted big block up and running in like a half an hour. It's really fast. It takes a lot more time with fuel injection. I've seen some 6 liters. Seems to be a plethora of Chevy Express fans out there. I'd like to have some 6 liters and some aluminum 5.3s. $60 and $61. We got 1 more minute. You should buy the big block Chevy Foundry and start making big blocks. I should buy that. I can't afford the gas to get there. Does the 4150 Terminator X have the same cooling effect as a carb? Yeah, anytime you're introducing fuel into the intake track from that position, you'll have a charge cooling effect. I don't know exactly what the difference is because I think that the guys from Engine Masters did that. I don't know if they get the same kind of, like the exact same type of atomization for that, but the charge cooling should be comparable. But has fuel injected made more power than a carb? For what are you talking about? Holder Heavy Industries. The days of the Gen 3 5.3 drop-off engine for 500 are done. I bet it'd be closer to 1,000 now. Really? Get $100 million loan? Yeah. Just $100 loan would be a lot. Just a crisp $100. Yeah, look at that guy. Look at that. Yeah, blower. Big blocks. Crazy stuff. Richard made the Ellis prices go up. I know. I feel like I did that, particularly to the junkyard that's like right by VORTEDH. I think I was responsible for them like raising their prices on everything. But on that note, it is time for me to go. But I'll be back tonight, and I'll see you guys all later. I'm coming, dog. Crazy dog.